Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome and thank you for taking out time for this interview from your busy schedule. My name is Ghayas. I'm very grateful to you that you have given this time for an in-depth interview related to COVID and its impact on attitude, behavior of consumers, and this is for our applied business research qualitative course. It will be taking around 40 to 45 minutes. We will try to wrap it up as early as possible. Uh, in this interview, there is no right answer or there is no wrong answer. I just want you to talk about different things and what is your opinion regarding the concerned topic which I'll be discussing about. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts and your opinion on the topic related to the recent COVID in Pakistan. One more thing, we will be audio recording this, and so we can actually transcribe it later on, and we will actually take a picture of our setting. So thank you very much for hosting me right now and taking giving this time to me. So we can just quickly
No issue
start
at
by
all.
just you can introduce yourself. Just tell me your name, your where do you work, what do you do, your position, and etc.
Acha. Walaikum salam, Ghayas. No issue at all. Always hazir for you. I graduated from IBA back in 2016, and afterwards I started working at an Amazon's based company called Utopia. I was working over there as a associate product manager. Then I got promoted as a product manager in a few months, and then worked over there for about 2 years. And afterwards, I joined Green Star Social Marketing, which is an NGO, and I started working there as a product manager. And I am currently looking after the contraceptive range, which includes their condoms, and to name the brands, Sati, Touch, and True. So that's a bit about me. Currently, my habits include reading books, watching movies, a little bit of sports activities, but I think it has come to a halt because of COVID, and that's it from my side.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you for this description. Now I would want you to illustrate a little more about your routine and your usual activities, basically before COVID impact took place. What were your routine before pre-COVID, in pre-COVID times, basically?
Okay, so I used to wake up early and used to pray Fajr, and afterwards I would take a little nap because there would be still be some time left for me to go to the office because the office starts at 9:30. So I would take a little nap, start, and then wake up again and get dressed up and go to the office. Reach the office by 10 or 9:45, and then I would leave the office by 7:30. And my office had a culture of late sitting, so that's why I used to sit over there for well past 7 o'clock as well. From the office, I had a habit of going to the gym. I go to the gym. I used to swim after the office hours, and apart from that, I had a social life as well, which I used to do, I used to hang out with my friends and family, relatives as well during the weekend. The weekend started from Friday night and went on till Sunday night. Uh, Apart from that, my job entails a lot of traveling as well. So I used to have at least one trip in a month, and I used to go up north towards the central region of Pakistan, or sometimes towards interior Sindh. So that's a bit of summary of my life before COVID.
Okay, okay, great. So this is uh pretty much you were involved in a lot of things. You used to work, you used to exercise, you used to travel, and you used to socialize. Perfect. This is a perfect example. Okay, the if you compare your life during the lockdown period, or you try and understand the difference COVID made in your life. So how was your experience during the COVID time, comparing your pre-COVID routine with what happened during the COVID.
So you're talking about during the lockdown days?
Yes.
Okay, so first and foremost, my off as soon as lockdown was announced, my office initiated the the policy of working from home. So the first difference was that I wasn't going to the office, and I started working from home. And consequently, since I was working from home, I didn't need to wake up early to get myself dressed up and prepare for going to the office, giving myself enough time to reach the office. Like if the office starts at 9:30, I used to leave my home by 8:15 or 8:30 to avoid the traffic situations. So that was a start. I used to wake up, if the office was supposed to start from 9, I used to wake up 5 minutes before 9 and just used to brush my teeth and logged into the computer, logged into Microsoft Teams just to tell my superiors that I'm available. And afterwards, I used to have breakfast during office hours because since we are working from home, there are no limitations as to when you can roam around the house, when you can have lunch, or when you can have breakfast. So that was also a big difference. Apart from that, working from home was a bit difficult because a lot of my superiors in the office are from the baby boomer generation, and they are not well versed with technology. So it was during the initial days, it was a big challenge for us to demonstrate our work to them. And I think they didn't really get used to the technology because after 2 or 2.5 weeks, they started calling us to the office even during the lockdown. So that's a separate topic which I would touch upon maybe during the later part of this interview. Apart from my office routine, obviously because of the lockdown, I stopped going to the gym, and um, that was a big disappointment for me because all sort of physical activity which I used to do, or the sort of exercise which a body needs, it all came to a halt. And this in turn made me a lot I felt becoming a lot lazier than before. And I think I actually gained weight as well during the lockdown. Apart from that, there were during lockdown I wasn't going out for namaz or even for shopping, and I preferred going once in a month and doing all the groceries so that I don't have to go outside. And apart from that, the social activities which I just mentioned earlier pre-COVID, they all came to a stop because of the lockdown. So the alternative which we found out was that having meetings on Zoom with friends or with the help of WhatsApp call. WhatsApp call only support you back at that time only supported up to 6 participants. So Zoom was the main platform with which we communicated amongst ourselves. That was also the period during which I saw that most of the elder people in our family uh, they started using
Tech
technology
savvy. Yeah.
because I think that previously they didn't feel the need to use the technology. They felt like just calling people on their cell phones or using PTCL phones to stay in touch with people was okay or enough for them. But as soon as lockdown started and most of the meetings or most of the get-togethers came to a halt, so they felt that like the need for video calls, and video calls and video chats and WhatsApp groups. So I felt that the elders in my family for the first time in their lives embraced this technology, this social platforms, these social platforms, and I frequently heard of people having group calls amongst themselves. Those are something which I couldn't have even imagined 2 months ago, 2 months before lockdown. I'm talking about those sort of people who actually rebuke the younger generation for using technology a lot. They feel that WhatsApp and other apps distract them from achieving their actual objectives or actual goals in their life, and they actually feel that it's a waste of time for all the people who use these apps. So it was a big surprise for me because the situation was made as such that those people actually started using those apps. Apart from this, when I felt that I was becoming lazier and I felt that I was gaining a lot of weight. So I started jogging in my neighborhood early in the morning. I prefer to go like 5:30 to avoid any contact with anyone because at that time there are no human beings even roaming on the street, even in your neighborhood as well. There was no
Mm-hmm.
one within 100 meters or so. So that was a feasible time which I felt that would be that would be good for me for me to exercise and jog and everything. uh, well, apart from that, I felt that during lockdown, I had a lot of time in my hands, and my normal routine of entertainment of watching movies, watching TV shows, was usually limited to only weekends. I used to watch a single movie in a weekend or TV show in a weekend, but because of the lockdown, because I had so much time in my hand, first of all, I subscribed to Netflix. That was something I hadn't done before, but due to the time I had in my hands during lockdown, I subscribed to Netflix. I started binge watching a lot of shows, and I felt that I was dedicating a lot of time to Netflix or to digital platforms, to TV, to TV shows, to movies. That was something which was not present in my habit or routine before. So that was a big change in my life, and I felt that it to continued till the start of Ramzan. I think
Mm-hmm.
Ramzan started in the first week of May, and we
Mm-hmm.
were still in lockdown during those days. But as soon as Ramzan started, because of some spiritual attachments, I let go of that habit. But I feel that it was a major change in my habit before Ramzan started. And apart from that, I used to shop almost every month with my family. Used to go to Lucky One or some other mall in the neighborhood. But because of lockdown, first of all, there was lockdown, so none of the malls were open. Secondly, I didn't feel the need. Actually, no one in the household felt the need to buy clothes or buy anything, because we weren't going anywhere. There were no events coming up. There were no weddings coming up. There were no sort of get-togethers. So there was no need to buy new clothes or buy new things. So there was no need for shopping as well. So we let go of that. We let go of that time. We let go of that habit, and consequently, I feel that during those 2 months there was a lot of savings, because we weren't spending on eating out. We used to eat out every Friday with family, or one day of the week was dedicated to eating out with family. So because of lockdown, we weren't eating out, and during the initial phases of lockdown, there were no delivery services as well. So everyone is was eating from home, dining in, and eating homemade foods. So I feel that that in turn led to a lot of savings, because the amount you used to spend on eating out, the amount you used to spend on shoppings, that got saved. So that was a time where we saved a lot of money. So that's a bit of a summary during the lockdown.
Yeah, that is great. That is quite insightful. You explained everything in quite great detail. In fact, you pretty much summarized the next question which I was gonna ask. So basically, let me quickly summarize what you explained. The first thing you mentioned what was your office routine was completely disrupted, and it everything turned online. So you were doing your office chores online, so there was no movement outside your house. Second thing you mentioned that there was no going to the gym, but then you replaced it in the later phase by jogging outside. So this was a
Yes.
major shift, and in fact, I should say a major lifestyle change for you. Other than that, you subscribe to Netflix, you gave more time to the screen. So if I'm not wrong, yeah, if you want to add anything related to your behavioral or your lifestyle changes other than your shopping and your uh, routine you mentioned. So is there anything else? Do you want to add something to
Yes,
this?
I think during the lockdown days I started consuming some products which were actually very healthy or beneficial for your body. Like I started taking vitamins which I didn't used to take before. I started consuming some herbal teas, which actually I started taking them for the first time in my life. Those herbal teas. Apart from that, there were some homemade remedies like haldi powder in milk, and some adrak ki chai, yani those age-old remedies which were usually recommended by our elders or by the older generations. I started consuming them because it, it was said that people who had high immunity had less chances of contracting COVID, and even if they contracted COVID, they had a high chance of surviving. So for that, for immunity boosting purposes, I started consuming these items. The vitamins which I used to take was CSC 1000. I felt that it was from a reliable source, and I actually liked the taste of that product. So that was something which I added in my routine. Apart from that, the herbal teas, which I think weren't that delicious or were just uh, too hard to consume. I started taking them on an alternate day basis because it's not easy to consume half a cup of green tea made from adrak. It's quite acidic and quite sour as well, and you need to add a lot of honey or sugar in it to actually make it something consumable. But if you add sugar, you're actually defeating the purpose of the tea. So I used to add honey to it. But still, even if you add honey, it makes a weird taste and it's really hard to consume. But I still got into a habit of consuming it, and I used to take it on alternate days. And this habit actually continued till Ramzan started. When Ramzan started, the entire routine cycle got disrupted because of rozas and sehri and iftari. So that was a different phase of my life during COVID. But the habits which I developed before Ramzan started during lockdown included these as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. That is great. This is quite a significant change, and you were really cautious and you were really serious about how COVID was impacting. Great. Now let me take you a little, in fact, two steps back. Uh, I would want to ask that when COVID started in China, so were you following this news? Were you aware of it? And were you keeping a track and how it was impacting China and the people?
Okay, so COVID started in December 2019 in China, and there were news about it here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
I actually started paying attention to it when it actually became a pandemic in China, and they started a lockdown in the Wuhan province, and there were videos going viral on social media regarding how they made a 1,000 bed hospital in just 3 or 4 days. I'm sure you must have seen it as well. It was
Yes.
really inspiring. So that's when I started paying attention to this disease.
And
And
what?
when it,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah. Go on, go on, go on.
so that's when I started paying attention, and when the disease broke out from China and went into different European countries, that's when it became the talk of the town for everyone. So everyone was talking about it, everyone was discussing it, like how the Chinese have actually tried to stop it, how the Chinese are taking measures to stop it, and how other people are going to cope up with it. And the that was, I think, in January mid, and in the starting of February, our PSL tournament started over here. People were like giving conspiracy theories that Pakistan has already got COVID cases, but they are not revealing it because of PSL, and as it would disrupt the tournament, and people would go back, the foreign players which came here. And I never really believed those claims, but that's when I feel that the normal people in Pakistan, the आम आदमी जिसे हम कहते हैं, those people started discussing COVID-19 and how it impacts people. I feel that I was genuinely following it because I had a international trip planned in March, and because of that international trip, I was carefully following how this pandemic was evolving and how it was impacting the different countries and how the airlines are going to operate, because I had to go abroad, and obviously if the airline is not going to operate, I won't be able to go. It so happened that I had given the passport to the embassy for visa application, but as soon as I had applied, I had given the passport, the country which I was going to went into a lockdown, and the airlines also suspended all their operations. So maybe my case was a bit different from others because I was going to travel abroad, so I paid a lot of attention to COVID. and how it was impacting other countries.
And what was your exact reaction when it was announced in Pakistan as well? This was pretty much how it was dealt in China, but when it was finally, and when the lockdown was announced in Pakistan, so what was your initial reaction? That how was life gonna be?
So my first reaction when the first case came in was that we had made a huge blunder, because our neighboring country Iran had already become an epicenter, and everyone was trying to persuade the government to do more. So they had to close down the border from Iran, with the border which connects Balochistan to Iran. They had to close it down, but they didn't do it, unfortunately. And the first case, which was COVID positive. It was a young man, I think in his early 20s. He had come from Iran, from his religious rituals, after doing his rituals, which are called ziyaratein. And he had come to Pakistan in the mid of February along with his family. And as soon as he came to Karachi, a day or so later, he started feeling those symptoms. And after feeling those symptoms, he felt, because he had seen a lot in the news, he knew that something was wrong, and he got himself tested from our country, and he was COVID positive. So that was the first case. And as soon as this case broke out, I was in Islamabad. I was traveling because, as I mentioned earlier, that as part of my job, I travel almost every month, and at that time, I was in Islamabad. So it was a shocker because the case was from Karachi, not so far from where I live. I live in Gulshan. I think the guy who contracted COVID lived 10 minutes from my place. He was a resident of Ancholi society. So Ancholi is not far from my place. So it was a real shock, and I was like, "Kya naam hai, if he came all the way from Iran and was COVID positive, then there's a very high chance that he has infected other people as well." So I started thinking about how to actually start taking precautions, because everyone is more concerned about their family rather than themselves. So I was concerned a lot about my family, plus my some of my family members from abroad were visiting during that phase. So I was also concerned about, if we go into a lockdown, how my family members who had come from abroad are going to go back to their homes, because if one of my elder brothers came to Pakistan for his vacations in February 2020, and as soon as he came, the reports or the talk of lockdown started to erupt, and there was a lot of uncertainty about how he's going to go back. So even Saudi Arabia canceled a lot of flights, and they gave a deadline of only 36 hours to everyone to return. And because of that deadline, the everyone who was in Pakistan from Saudi Arabia had to go back. Either that, or they are going to get stuck in Pakistan till COVID subsided, and nobody knew how long it was going to take for this pandemic to end. So they only had 36 hours or 48 hours to 48 hours to report back to their country. And he actually got a very expensive ticket because of that limited limited time, and there were only limited flights operating from Pakistan to Saudi Arab. So he got a very expensive ticket, I think 2.5 times the normal amount, and
Mm,
that's how he escaped from Pakistan. And I think there were a lot of other people as well. I know someone who went abroad for vacations in Indonesia, and he got stuck over there because of lockdown. Indonesia itself went into a lockdown, and Pakistan itself went into a lockdown. So there were no flights operating between in Jakarta and Pakistan. So he got stuck over there for about a month or so, and was only able to come back on a chartered PIA flight, which was sanctioned especially to bring back those travelers who were stuck in Indonesia. I think it was the same case with everyone. There were COVID impacted everyone on a different level, and such as me, I was concerned about my family, how they're going to go back. Others were concerned about their elders. Some others were concerned about their jobs because they were working on contractual basis, and if they went into a lockdown, they are going to be laid off. So I think that what pretty much summarizes how it impacted me.
yeah, everyone was impacted. You are right. It impacted the travelers, the workers, and everyone. Hmm. Great, great. Thank you for sharing. your insights and how it was linked to your family, to your close immediate family, and it was linked to your family members, and how traveling was a havoc for everyone. Okay, great. Okay, so this brings me to the next question. What do you think was the role for television media or digital platforms? What was the role these platforms were playing in spreading awareness or either in spreading fear among the people? What is your experience related to this?
I think it's a very broad question. Firstly, I feel that there was a lot of information online, or a lot of information on digital platforms, so it wasn't necessarily all of the information wasn't necessarily true. Do As soon as this pandemic started, people started coming up with their own remedies for this disease. Some of them were saying that if you take steam, you're gonna get cured. If you take hot water, you're gonna get cured. If you if your country or if the area you're living in goes, the temperature of that area goes above 28 degrees Celsius, this virus is not going to survive. And there were some other rumors or remedies which were being proposed by some very authentic pages, which later turned out to be false. And I saw a lot of people promoting those, forwarding those WhatsApp messages without actually verifying whether the information they were forwarding was correct or not. I think at that time there were only few digital platforms which were giving 100% authentic information. The first one was a Twitter platform. I forgot. I think it was from WHO or a body from the United Nations. I can't really remember it because it's been a while, 6 or 7 months. But there was a Twitter account, and it was rolling out information almost every day, updating itself because new and new research was coming in every day, and it was also debunking some of the rumors and myths and misconceptions which were related to COVID, and they were spread among others because, as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of people forwarding those information without verifying, and a lot of news outlets actually reported those myths and misconceptions without verification. So that Twitter account of WHO, if I'm correct, was the most reliable source of information. That goes for digital. Apart from that, in digital, I saw a lot of people on Facebook coming up with their own theories, coming up with their own conspiracy theories as well, that the government is hiding the number of cases which are in the country. The government actually, that was during the initial phase. The people were saying the government is hiding the number of COVID cases in the country, and 1 month or so later, they were saying that there are lesser cases of COVID in the country, but the government is over portraying them because they want funding from abroad. There was also some sort of weird rumor that with every dead body, the government receives $2,000, and in order to attract more funding and in order to gain
Mm,
foreign exchange, they are going to portray a lot of COVID or a lot of deaths related to COVID. There was a person on Twitter which I saw, and she even posted pictures of an autopsy report. She was like that my uncle suffers from a heart condition, and he died due to a heart attack, and he didn't have COVID, he didn't have any symptoms, but the death certificate which has been given by the hospital, it says the reason of death or the cause of death is COVID. So there were a lot of people who were like her, which I just mentioned. They were saying that the government is actually trying to over portray the number of deaths, and they actually have a gain with the number of deaths, with the number of people who die. And sadly, so I even saw a cleric giving a khutbah on the day of Jummah. He was like that, even if you contract COVID, even if you feel like you're going to die, if you यानी इतनी आपकी तबीयत खराब हो जाए कि आपको लग रहा हो आप मरने वाले हैं, even in that case you shouldn't go to the hospital because they are going to give you an injection which is, even if you're not dying, you're going to die. In essence, he was saying that the staff at the hospital is going to kill you deliberately because they want to give your dead body to the government, and the government is in turn going to take funding from abroad, from WHO or God knows where, God knows what, who was going to fund because of those dead bodies. And after attracting that funding, they are going to give some of the cut to the hospital and the hospital staff, and and uh, and keep the remaining cut to themselves. So I think that was the negative side of digital platforms. Apart from that, TV was at that time, they were only the news channels were only showing coronavirus. They had a counter in the left corner showing how many cases they had, how many cases the country has, how many cases the world has, how many deaths have happened till date, and how many people have recovered. And at that during those days at 5 p.m. Every day there was a press conference from the special assistant to prime minister, Dr. Zafar Mirza, and he used to update the public of Pakistan regarding how many cases have recovered, how many new cases have emerged, what the government is doing to curb those new cases, and how
Mm,
what the way forward is going to be. And he always had a calm demeanor, and that was something I feel was actually needed during those times. But sadly, he himself became a victim of a conspiracy, and he got removed from his position due to some reason. And we had a new special assistant to prime minister some weeks later. So apart from that, there were some the depressing things which we used to see on TV. That was the political point scoring between the different provincial governments and federal governments. And just to name a few, just to name one example, it was between the Sindh government and the federal government. The chief minister of Sindh used to say to the government to enforce a complete lockdown like the one he had announced in Sindh. And the federal government in turn used to say that they are going to a complete lockdown is going to affect the livelihoods of the poor, so they cannot go into a lockdown. And the ministers of the federal government consequently gave explanation as to why they are not going to go into a lockdown. And apart from that, there were 2 or 3 addresses from the prime minister himself. He came on TV and defended his policy of not going into lockdown early on. But I think that was a failed move, because just after his address, a week or so afterwards, his own government in Punjab and KPK announced a lockdown, and later on, federal government was forced to announce a lockdown as well. And apart from that, there were some press conferences between the journalists and the prime minister. That was in turn, instead of being a morale boosting press conference for the people, it would turn out to be something which would give people a depression or sort of a letdown, because the journalists were bamboozling the prime minister with very difficult questions, and most of them were related to the state of the economy. And what we saw was that the prime minister only had one answer, that he's going to take care of the poor. That's why there cannot be a long period of lockdown. That was something which I feel was from the TV side. Apart from that, I don't go into newspaper. I never read. I think the last time I read a newspaper was like 10 years ago. So my main sources of information are digital and TV. I used to watch very seldom because of the issues which I just mentioned. My main source of information was digital, and through digital only I focused on reliable platforms because of the disinformation related to COVID, which was very rampant during that time. Like I mentioned, I saw many reliable pages, reliable outlets actually spreading that disinformation. They actually had, because this was a new disease, many people didn't know much about it, and even the health practitioners didn't have any clue during the initial phases. So it was only a natural that many reliable sources actually start giving information which wasn't true. So which the Twitter account which I just mentioned earlier was the one which I relied on for information related to COVID, its remedies, its precautions. And as far as Pakistan-based information sources is concerned, I used to rely on the COVID updates section of Dawn website. And even in that website, I used to actually check the source of who was actually posting the news, because whenever Dawn posts a news, they actually mention it, whether it's from their own reporter or they have extracted it from an international news outlet like AFP or Reuters. So if it was from AFP and Reuters, I would feel that it was more reliable. But if it was from their own reporters, I had a sense of I felt like it might not be true, so I didn't feel that it would be that reliable. So I think that was a summary of how the information was gained during those periods.
Hmm. Yeah, great. One more thing, you mentioned that during the media press conferences, it was quite depressing for the people. So, what made you say that? And in fact, if I may, can you share your experience regarding the attitudes or the change among people around you in terms of they were carrying anger, they were frustrated, there was anxiety, they were fearful, hopeful. What were their emotions and how do they feel during the lockdown period?
Regarding the depressing press conferences, I think that during that period, everyone needed uplifting, and they needed a motivational speech or so, and that was something which wasn't present at that time. Everyone is engaged in political point scoring, and I I felt like I felt depressed by seeing that, because at that time the nation needed to be united in order to fight this pandemic, and that wasn't seen to be. And the army was acting on its own, the federal government was acting on its own, the provincial governments were acting on their own. So there was no unity to be seen, and there were efforts made to actually uplift the poor segment of the society which got affected because of lockdowns. And I feel that it was a very good initiative by the government, but they weren't able to actually portray it well because of the opposition or because of the negative role of the media during that time. I'm talking about the SAS program where everyone received I think 13,000 or 14,000 rupees per family, and I actually know deserving families who received those entitlements from the government, and I feel that it was a very transparent program, and those who were actually in need were actually got that funding from the government. And that was something which was a very positive during that time and should have been highlighted and should have been appreciated by the people. But I don't think it happened, and that is something which I feel is quite depressing as well. Regarding how the people viewed it, like I said, a lot of our population still it still till this day feels that COVID, there was no such thing as COVID, and the government actually exaggerated it. The COVID never came into Pakistan. It was something which was only for China, and it got eradicated over there. The government only highlighted it because they wanted funding. I know people who still pretend this, and who actually believe this to be true. And apart from that, there were people who were actually quite in fear, and they didn't leave their house even in cases of dire need. I know someone who goes to his office with a complete face mask which is used by the firefighters. It's a plastic mask, completely sealed from the outside, and he carries that mask to his office. He doesn't. He just goes there, sits on his seat, and comes back. He doesn't even attends the meeting in his office, even if his superiors are asking him to. So there are such people in our society as well, and I generally feel that the educated lot responded well to the precautions, but even in those educated lots, there were people who took it very lightly, and I think they later paid the price, because during the initial phases when the number of cases were low, they weren't they didn't contract COVID, but after Ramzan during Eid gatherings, because of a lot of Eid gatherings and as people weren't following the SOPs, the a lot of people who I who I saw were not taking it seriously. They themselves actually contracted COVID. So much for them not taking this disease seriously. So they went into isolation for 14 days, and some of them became quite ill. Some of them, some of them till this day still experience some after effects of this disease, because as this disease is still under research, and some research is saying that the effects of COVID are felt were 6 months to 1 year afterwards as well, even if you recover. So I know someone who is experiencing severe hair fall. I know someone who is experiencing severe back pain after recovering from COVID. So that is something which I've seen in my surroundings. I know a lot of people who have contracted COVID and have recovered, Alhamdulillah, now. I know some people who passed away due to this disease as well, and I think I've seen a lot of recoveries as well. And most of the people I've seen who have contracted COVID were those who weren't taking precautions. They actually, I know someone from office who used to laugh at someone who used to wear a mask. He was like, "Hey, kuch nahi hota, kuch nahi hota," and it wasn't a surprise because he himself didn't used to wear a mask, and he himself contracted COVID. I know someone from office who didn't used to wear a mask because she used to feel that the lipstick she used to wear wouldn't be visible to other people. So if she wore a mask, the others won't be able to see that lipstick. So this thinking in turn led to her contracting COVID, and she went into isolation as well. She has recovered as well. That is something which I have observed of, from the people around me.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Great. And how has it affected your health? Was be it physically, mentally, how was it anything transformational for you? I remember you mentioned that it was something where you started consuming different vitamins and different what do you call home remedies to cure yourself and to boost the immune system. So other than that, do you feel any impact on your health?
I think during the lockdown period, I gained some weight. I think 4 to 5 kgs because of my routine. Even though I started jogging, but that thing didn't actually become into a habit because I wasn't able to follow it through during Ramzan. There came a 30-day gap, and after that big gap, I wasn't able to restart that habit of mine that I wasn't able to restart jogging again. So I started gaining weight. I think I've gained like 4 to 5 kgs in the past few months, and that is something I consider a lot. I think apart from that, the home remedies which I was taking, I think that was only for a temporary period, and it has stopped now. But the habit of taking vitamins before going to sleep, that has become a habit, and I still carry it till date. Buying CSE 1000, it has become a regular part of my grocery list, and it has become a, an addition to the long list of items which we purchase whenever we go out for groceries. So
Hmm.
apart from that, the habit of wearing masks, carrying sanitizers all the time, and not shaking hands with people is something which is still carried today. I think people have become a bit relaxed now, as I see a lot of people shaking hands. I myself don't initiate a handshake, but if someone extends his hand towards me, I don't say no to him because I feel like the pandemic is not at its peak now, and we are at a very better situation right now. But just to be on the safe side, as soon as I shake hands with them, I take out the sanitizer from my pocket and sanitize my hands just to be on the safe side. And I think that those are the changes which have become permanent in my life, like adding those vitamins. I forgot to mention I started taking dry fruits as well during breakfast because a lot of doctors have recommended dry fruits in your diet as they boost your immunity. So dry fruits have become a regular in my diet. They started during the lockdown, and they still continue today.
That's great. That's great. And talking of immunity boosting, and in fact, talking of personal protection, which you mentioned that you try and avoid shaking hands, you wear a mask and hand sanitizers and everything. So I would want to ask that what motivates you to use them, and what is your opinion regarding social distancing and isolation?
Like I said earlier, that I've seen people who were relaxed and didn't take these
Mm-hmm.
precautions seriously actually contracted COVID later on. So I feel that those precautions are only going to actually help you, and if you're not following those precautions, the ones going to be at loss are going to be yourself or your family members. Because if you contract COVID, maybe you might have the immunity system to fight that disease. But what if the elders in your family contract COVID because you brought it in their house? And the elders, obviously, they are towards the 60 plus age of their life, do not have that much immunity, and they have compromised immunity. And just because of you not following those precautions, because of arrogance or whatever reason you might have in your head, they have become at risk. Their lives have become at risk. So I think that everyone should follow those precautions, because it's not that difficult to wear a mask. It feels weird during the initial phases, but as soon as you get used to it, it's not that difficult. And yeah, I feel that sanitizing your hands after every once in a while, that can be something which can be adapted into a habit, and it's not that difficult. I myself have followed those two habits religiously. Wearing masks has become a bit relaxed, because like I said earlier, that the number of COVID cases had declined in Pakistan, and the need for precautions wasn't that much as it was during the initial phases. So even though I carry a sanitizer all the time, I sanitize my hand even today. But wearing a mask, I don't wear a mask that often as I used to do
Mm-hmm.
during during the initial phases of this pandemic.
Hmm. Okay, that's great. That's great. This brings us down to the last 2 to 3 questions. So we'll try to just wrap it up. Uh, I would want to understand the impact of COVID on your financial condition. So was it a serious thing for you, or it was nothing and you were quite relaxed? You mentioned that the lockdown period brought savings for you and your family. So what were other implications on the financial condition?
Alhamdulillah. I'm sure you, by this question you mean that whether my livelihood or whether my occupation or whether my employer started giving salary cuts. But alhamdulillah, that wasn't the case with me. I was getting full salary during that period. And like I said earlier, because some of the habits which were pre-COVID, like dining out, going out with family, going for shopping with family, going to different places, going out for watching movies, for going out to theater or other entertainment avenues, they actually came to a stop. So I was able to save money from actually shopping, from actually spending on those activities. So I wasn't going out. I was saving money from that. I wasn't going out for shopping. I was saving money from that. So during that period, that was a period where I actually saved money. And here I would like to add that during this period, I felt that other people around me, including myself, started doing charity as well, because even though I was in good financial condition, I wasn't having any salary cuts, but others around me, a lot of people got laid off, a lot of people got salary cuts, a lot of people didn't have any work to do because they were working on a daily wages basis. They were working for construction and other blue collar labor who earn on a daily basis. So that was those were the people who were the most affected by lockdowns, as they didn't have any work and they didn't have much savings with themselves to which would be able to sustain during that period. So I might have been saving money, but I started doing charity for those people, and I felt that people around me contributed a lot as well. Uh, s- I I've I've seen people who rarely contribute towards any charity causes, but during the lockdown, when they saw that people were in need, people were suffering, I saw them giving out handsome amounts to charity organizations, to their domestic laborers, to actually help them during cope with this situation.
Hmm. Great, great, great. Okay. So you've already talked about the actions taken by the government during COVID. You have already given your opinion regarding social distancing. I would want to understand that what are your fears and anticipations for the future of COVID and in fact post COVID? And do you fear there is going to be a second wave? How is it going to be impacting the economy and the people around us?
There might be a second wave, but the thing is that we are more We are more knowledgeable now on how to counter that wave because we have experience now because we were able to do it when there was a peak last time. So inshallah, we would be able to do it better this time along. And there can be a second wave. I hope that it's not as severe as the first peak. And just today or yesterday, I saw the news that the number of cases in a single day were the highest in 3 months yesterday. So the number of cases, it seems like, are increasing, and I think that people should start taking precautions again in order to break this second curve. Otherwise, it won't flatten, and the number of cases will keep on increasing like they did in May and June, and we might see a lot of more COVID cases and a lot of more deaths. The government should. I feel that there won't be a lockdown again. The most which would happen would be like closing of schools, universities, and closing down shopping malls and gyms and swimming pools and shadi halls. The most which that is something which I feel is the most which would happen. Apart from that, I feel like businesses would continue as usual because when the initial lockdown was imposed, there were a lot of losses and the economy came to a stop, and we had negative GDP after I don't know how many years, and we actually incurred a lot of losses. That was the reason behind the lifting of lockdown. I don't think the government is going to impose lockdown again, and even if they do, it would be because of political pressure. Because since government is in opposition, they might impose a lockdown and then force the federal government to do it like they did last time. But willingly, I don't think the federal government would be willing to impose a lockdown, and I think that it would follow its policy of smart lockdowns, only putting the areas which are at high risk, which have high cases, in lockdowns. So I think that's the way forward which the government is going to follow. But in Pakistan, with especially the current political scenario, you never know. There are huge political gatherings happening every week by the opposition, and who knows, it might actually turn out to be epicenters of COVID because there are no social distancing measures observed during those gatherings. So the future, I think, is quite uncertain. We can only hope that it's going to be better than the one which was before.
But what do you think are, but in fact, what would you recommend the government to make improvements in their strategies to better cater the second wave of COVID?
I think there should be some steps which should be taken right away, like the places which have huge gatherings should be limited, or actually they should be banned, like those the jalsas which I just mentioned. They should not be happening. Apart from that, there is a Rabiul Awwal procession coming next week. SOPs should be implemented for those processions, or if the SOPs are not implemented, at least they should be like completely banned, or the number of gatherings which are taking in the marriage halls, the they are turning out to be epicenters of COVID, and we are seeing that schools are back in action. Kids are going to schools again. So the schools should be shut down. There should be some concrete steps, because if we feel that we are going to counter the second wave by doing nothing, because at this stage we are doing nothing, we are just asking people to wear masks and follow precautions. I think that our public is not as such. They can't be made to do something just out of their own willingness, and just a dial tone of when we call people, just a dial tone of following those precautions is not going to persuade anyone to follow those SOPs. So I think the government should actually make some steps to counter this second wave, like shutting down shopping malls, shutting down gyms, like they did during the initial phases of the first lockdown. That's how lockdown started, because when the first lockdown was announced, it wasn't something which was completely announced like out of the blue. It was done in phases. Like first it was shopping malls, then it was schools, then it was universities. Like it was done as phases. I think that the same policy should be followed, but instead of a complete lockdown, there should be some specific areas which are completely banned from holding gatherings like marriage halls, those jalsas, or or those religious processions.
Yeah, that is fine. That is, in fact, great recommendation for the government to make improvements to their strategies, because currently we do see that government has taken a few measures which you have mentioned already, but these measures are not doing any good. So, yeah, and we all should take care, and we all should act more responsible and better equip ourselves to deal with this COVID situation, and it in case it pops out again. So, yeah, in the end, I would like to thank you once again, Mr. Moaz, for taking out time and giving us such an insightful interview, and your based on your personal experiences and observations. And thank you again for hosting me. Uh, so this will be it. So thank you very much.
Okay, Jazakallah. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.